I guys don't know about you, but personally I find the topic of artificial intelligence curious as it is currently developing at an incredible pace. Well, call it artificial intelligence or neural networks or matrix selection matrices. It doesn't matter. The point is that it is developing very quickly, consuming a lot of electricity in general, and it is very interesting to look at various aspects. So today I propose we touch on 4 topics related to OpenAI, AMD and Nvidia. Nvidia is also in gaming, so enjoy your meal for those eating or drinking tea. Let's get started. Hello people, it's Human with you, and as always a sip of useful and tasty information for you. Oh yes, that's it. Well, folks, I suggest starting with OpenAI. It turns out they are creating their own social network. According to several OpenAI sources, they plan to create something like X, the one that used to be Twitter. Currently, let's say, the project is quite in the early stage of development. As for the prototype itself, it is based on a social network linked to the ChatGPT image generator. And the head of the company, Sam Altman, wants to get opinions about the project from external parties. As a result, the new social network, which we are waiting for, I definitely am, might be launched as a standalone app or become part of ChatGPT, which in my opinion is also quite convenient. I don't know about you, ChatGPT, I use it almost daily, either for everyday situations or for work. Nonetheless, one of the ideas of the OpenAI social prototype is to artificial intelligence helped people share better content. Well, it sounds quite strange. Technically, we take the same YouTube, a similar story emerges, just a video hosting. Well, we'll see. Nevertheless, they claim that this network and this algorithm, so to speak, provide more open data directly for training and improving the artificial intelligence itself. Moreover, let's not forget that there is a good example when they connected integrated Grok artificial intelligence into the network, X or X, whichever you prefer. Moreover, it is already known that Meta is also creating its competitor for ChatGPT and wants to add a social feed to its artificial intelligence assistant. Plus, let's remember that Meta from the same Zuckerberg, basically Facebook and everything else, they're also really into virtual reality, VR, AR, and, well, overall in all of this. Although there are questionable projects, as many might say, because a lot of money is being invested and the profit is still unclear, possibly even unprofitable. But since all this is connected, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, artificial intelligence, neural networks, in short, I don't know, it's very interesting. Those who have played with VR headsets will especially understand me, especially if they have played or just used mixed reality. In short, it's very curious and fun. I recommend it to everyone. Nevertheless, the new project from OpenAI will clearly increase competition with others technological companies, which is very good. You know my opinion about monopoly and competition. At the same time, it should not be forgotten that even the same OpenAI has quite a few projects, and accordingly work on their social network prototype does not mean it will be ready tomorrow or next year, but who knows. Anyway, there are many projects, so we'll have to wait. Well guys, let's move on. There's information about AMD, I'll tell you now, which, yellow, or call them orange or red. Together with Stability AI, they released Muse 3.0. For those who do not know or have forgotten, I am explaining that this is an application for launching generative models of artificial intelligence that joint and optimized for Radeon graphics cards and Ryzen hybrid processors. Sounds tasty, right? That is technically, these are tools for generating images. But with the Shisaki Goshate with the new video diffusion features, creating short videos is now available. Gosh, at this moment you think, I have Nvidia, can I do something like this? Here we have support for a very large number of additional artificial intelligence filters. This is both for images and video restyle functions, plus Muse 3.0. It uses optimized versions of Stable Diffusion 3.5 from Stability AI itself, plus the Flux.1 model from Black Forest Labs, and also a library of 100 popular user-created artificial intelligence models for creating images in certain styles. And since this is optimized for AMD hardware, all of this allows for output much faster than if we are talking about the basic settings. So it turns out that, well, for example, if we take RX using the 9700 XT with Muse 3.0, you as a user can expect picture generation in Stable Diffusion 1.5 to be 4 times faster and a 3-fold advantage in SDXL 1.0. And if we're talking about AI9 HX370, then owners of such processors will see an acceleration from 5 up to 50%, well, all depending on the selected model, plus you can also run new large models. And for the basic functions of Muse 3.0, a graphics card, even a Radeon with around 6 GB of video memory and an AI processor with 16 GB random access memory. This, in my opinion, is somewhat sacrilegious in the context of artificial intelligence, but nevertheless the possibility exists, a cheap, harsh entry into AI. It does sound a bit awkward, doesn't it? Better you in it than it in you, right? Probably. I don't know. Everyone has their own. Anyway, let's move on. Nevertheless, for really normal functionality of fully functional models, it's still better to use something like an RX 9700 or there. Radix 7900 plus ProZic AI Max, preferably plus 395. Noisy Doki. And to have 64 or even 128 GB of memory, well, RAM. This also includes drivers for Adrenalin 2430, 3105 or Adrenalin 2451. In general, for those interested who have AMD and like to explore a bit here with AI or something new for themselves, all the links are in the description. Anyway, here we go. Further. Welcome, you can already download. Now a bit about Huawei chips regarding artificial intelligence, which seems to have replaced the chips that Nvidia was pushing in China. Last week, well, it's last for me even more so for you, on the 19th restrictions were introduced by the US on the supply of specialized accelerators, specifically Nvidia H20 in China. Well, for those who forgot, let me remind you that previously these chips for artificial intelligence became a response to the restrictions from the previous US administration. Nevertheless, even such a downgraded version of the Hopper, also known as H100, still had very high demand. Later, there was news that our jacket, also known as Jensen Huang, apparently made a deal with Trump about supplying these devices to China. But as it turned out, at least, according to information from one source, very strict export licensing rules were introduced for Nvidia H20 as well as for similar chips. As a result, Nvidia said that due to all this, the company will lose $5 billion. All this during the financial year 2026. However, as it turned out, Nvidia's problems did not end there, because there is, let's say, a local tech giant, namely Huawei. Naturally, well, nature abhors a vacuum, it reacts to the situation and has already announced a special chip, Ascend 920 for artificial intelligence, of course. Unfortunately, this technological Chinese, the giant did not tell us, but says it seems it will directly compete with Nvidia. Powerful. It seems to use a 6nm process from SEMIC, not from TSMC, and all this instead of 7nm like the current Ascend 910C. The chip will seemingly use the same chiplet design as before with Ascend. Well, and if so, here's some speculation, theorizing most likely the performance will amount to 900 teraflops and the memory bandwidth will be 4000 GB per second, and accordingly this chip will be faster by 30%, maybe even 40% compared to the previous generation. As for Huawei itself, for those who are not really following well, the source correctly noted that they have already created an excellent ecosystem of their own if we are talking about high performance computing. For example, the same Cloud Matrix cluster, it is on Ascend 910C chips, so it is already capable of competing with the new Nvidia GB200 NVL72 system, and it includes 72 Blackwell GPUs and 36 Grace CPUs, so it will be interesting to see what happens next. We'll see how Huang handles it, or if not, and Huawei replaces it. Nonetheless, there is another interesting piece of news about artificial intelligence in the gaming industry. Let's listen to what this is all about, if there is any point in it, but your opinion is interesting. I think you remember when the presentation of Nvidia graphics cards for the 50th series took place, right? There you go. But it wasn't only CES 2025 that was interesting to watch. Nvidia also held a separate conference, in fact, for this occasion for Eastern European countries. Why? Well, to once again remind what there are advantages of the new video cards. This was especially relevant before the release of their lower-end versions. All this was presented to us by the speaker of Games, Stanek, who is the senior technical product manager of the company. In general, he naturally praised the Blackwell architecture at first compared to Ada, which is typical from a marketing standpoint, and listed a number of improvements. I will not enumerate them. If you're interested, you can pause here and see what it is written. And for AI here, there's ray tracing, shaders and so on. The same was mentioned regarding laptops. That means the new models are expected to perform at the level of mobile RTX 4090 mista speak da easy și and moreover energy consumption will be cut in half, strange as it may sound, fast AI models, video processing 40% faster, 40% more battery life, and the ability to create laptops with a thickness of 14.9 millimeters. And as stated, artificial intelligence plays a much larger role in creating images. Well, for instance, if we are talking about frame generation in DLSS 4, which in fact is exclusive to the 50th series RTX and has replaced DLSS 3.5 plus neural shading computations and artificial intelligence systems. Ace for gaming characters. So as soon as DLSS 4 arrived, only 1 out of 16 frames is created using conventional rendering. The rest are generated by artificial intelligence. That is, within DLSS 4, a new concept, let's say, of a transformer is incorporated to implement scaling technologies. And now it processes twice as many parameters, has 4 times more computational processing power and high image quality. And if we're talking about DLSS multi-frame generation, this technology appeared in the latest generation of graphics cards. If you recall, when discussing the first generation of RTX technology, we already, from the point of view of technology, the distant year 2018, then the function of this ray tracing was supported only in a few games, I think in 4. Moreover, speaking about the 20th line, only 37% of players, if not fewer, enabled this ray tracing, and DLSS was used by 26. But by mid-2023, the third generation of ray tracing was supported in more than 450 games. As a result, those who used the 40th series, about 83% of gamers played with ray tracing and 79% played with DLSS. It's quite a strange percentage. That means some gamers, well, conditionally speaking, those who play with ray tracing, well, I think 99% also play with DLSS to increase FPS consumption. Accordingly, 83% played with ray tracing and 79% played with DLSS. So where are the other 4%? So there were enthusiasts who turned on ray tracing but did not enable frame generation. Probably they played specific games and clearly on the 5090s or 4090s, that's how it turns out. Well, depends on which series of graphics cards. It's kind of strange, right? But this directly concerns the 40th series. I don't know, maybe I misunderstood something. Write in the comments. Well, if we're talking about the 50th series, then statistics say that more than 90% uses DLSS RTX features. So people use DLSS in 92% of cases, reflex in 96% and ray tracing 90%. And for a person to get the maximum enjoyment from the game, according to Nvidia, 3 points must be observed. That is the average frames per second, that is our smoothness, changing the picture, image quality and high sensitivity, meaning low latency. Ultimately, for ensuring the first point regarding frames per second, DLSS is responsible. Quality is handled by DLSS transformer. Well, the response is generated by Nvidia Reflex. So it turns out that DLSS provides up to 6 times higher FPS compared to native rendering with half the latency. If we talk about DLSS in performance mode and look at the RTX 5070 Ti, it delivers twice the frames than DLSS 3 for quality with the same or approximately the same latency. And in the end, DLSS 4 is already supported in more than 100 games, and additionally it is being implemented further into these games, technology. And now in April we were promised that neural shaders would become available, and plus the Agility SDK developer kit will be released. By the way, you can write if it's already available or not, because I haven't checked yet. Well, neural rendering and neural shaders will also be included in DirectX. Plus the source reports that, let's say, enthusiasts and the active Nvidia community are already actively using the SDK and independently creating RTX modifications for those games that they really like. That is, during this period more than 150 games were created that are compatible with the technology, and the community, well, let's say the Nvidia community already numbers more than 30,000 modders plus 350 modding projectors and about 100 ready-made mods. Why go far? On my gaming channel Human Buzz Games, I showed you directly how Half-Life RTX works. There, yes, the demo currently has 2 levels available, but wow, the lighting changes a lot. And if we go back a little further, on the 28th of March, if you remember, a game called Inzoi, a kind of Sims killer, was released. It already supported Nvidia Ace, meaning artificial intelligence, which was used for programming characters, and as a result they began to behave like well, let's say personalities. They could perform roles of regular non-playable characters, companions, or even opponents. Thank goodness, only in games. If not all of you are gamers or are indifferent to games, there was also a presentation from Rick Napier, who said that artificial intelligence is useful not only in the video game industry. For your information, Rick Napier is another technical product management of the company who shared some intriguing information. And let's delve a bit into history, but believe me, you'll find it interesting. As early as 1956, analog video appeared. In 1991, the by 20 Simon, the era of digital video processing began. In 2019, video processing began to use artificial intelligence. And already by the year 2024, generative AI became capable of creating videos on its own. I think you've seen a lot of interesting videos generated by artificial intelligence. Moreover, what's interesting is that they improve each time. You should also understand that as a result, the consumption of hardware like video memory increases. For instance, in the year 2022, Stable Diffusion with 1 billion parameters required only 4 GB of video memory. In the year 2023, Stable Diffusion XL with 3 billion parameters already required 9 GB, and all this for local launch. And in 2024, Flux with its 12 billion parameters already requires 23 GB. Please tell Nvidia about this, which is releasing the 50th series of graphics cards with 8 GB of video memory. They are probably not aware, although it's their report. Accordingly, I think in 2025 or 2026, well, we will have to use even more video memory, maybe 2 or even 3 times more. Nevertheless, if we talk about the 5090, it personally uses the new FluxDev FP4 instructions, and compared to the previous 4090 series, there was FluxDev FP16. So simply put, let's say all this allows processing scenes not only 3 times faster, but also uses half the memory. And let's be honest, even with this from the Nvidia presentation, nevertheless GeForce RTX graphics cards are practically beyond competition in the context of artificial intelligence. That is, the same RTX 5070 noticeably outperforms the closest competitor graphics cards from the same AMD and 5090. Moreover, it exceeds by 2.5 times according to this measure. But here we need to be as honest as possible. We remember that AMD, specifically Lisa Su, stated that in the next line of graphics cards, which we're talking about, Nvidia's 50th, the lineup and the corresponding one from AMD, well, AMD won't have such video cards. Accordingly, well, as it were, Nvidia is right that competition weak or even non-existent for the most part, but at the same time they sort of declared, we are not going to compete with you. Moreover, there is also Nvidia NIM, also known as a NIM, which are batch optimized and easy to deploy microservices for generative AI. Plus, the new graphics cards support decoding of the 4:2:2 camera format, and by the way, they have become significantly cheaper and more accessible for the average consumer recently. Let's not forget about transcoding with the latest RTX graphics cards, which takes 11 times less time. Well, compare this to the same operations on the most powerful Intel Core desktop processor, 14900K, that is for content creators who work with rendering video processing, and that's me. Acquiring new RTX 50 series video cards from Nvidia, it will significantly boost performance, well, at least that's what Nvidia claims. With my 4070 Ti, I'm definitely not going to swap it for a 5090 for that reason alone. Considering the prices, I need a new power supply too. In short, forget it. You know, it's like cleaning or renovations, or you start with one thing. Pulled everything else like a domino effect. And of course, the company supported it with a demonstration of technologies at a certain unprepared stand, where you can see the difference between the old and new models of video cards. That is, we not only saw the differences between the latest generations of hardware, but this demo also included a historical excursion. And in the end, the demonstration not only showed the differences between the latest generations of hardware, but also, let's say, you could find retro hardware too. Some might even feel nostalgic, maybe shed a tear and remember their childhood. Well, in any case, that is here. Several machines from the Computer Technology Museum of the Polish city of Katowice were present, and surprisingly they worked quite well. Well, for example, there was a computer, let's say, in its own culture with an Nvidia GeForce 256 graphics accelerator, and that was still in the year 1999, and the classic cult game Quake 3 Arena was launched on it. There was also a computer with a GeForce 3500 and the game Colin McRae Rally 2. Oh my god, my childhood. And here, in fact, for the first time in history, programmable shaders were demonstrated, which appeared in 2001. Plus, there was a rack with GeForce 8800 GTX, and you could shed a tear of nostalgia, as can't shed a tear for Call of Duty 4. I remind you that the 8800 GTX was the first video card with support for CUDA and DirectX 10, and this was 2007, and there was also the GeForce GTX 580, which was used in 2010 to train neural networks to recognize AlexNet images. Well, relatively fresher, of course, is the RTX 2080 Ti. This is the year 2018. Back then it became the first video card to use DLSS alongside artificial intelligence and real-time ray tracing. As for the software itself, there was a demonstration of projects from G-Assist directly related to AI. That is, this is an assistant that recognizes voice and text, meaning commands through voice and text, and helps optimize the system. Naturally, it works with video cards of the 50th series, plus you could see neural rendering on Unreal Engine 5, moi ce PC de Jushazachav, meaning Zora. They also connected the game Star Wars Outlaws. As a result, you could assess the difference in image and FPS when using TAA anti-aliasing technology, well, in comparison naturally with DLSS4. Moreover, DLSS4 with the help of AI supported a multi-frame generator and a new image processing model called Roto Transformer. There was also interesting content for car enthusiasts. Forza Horizon 5 was there, and you could play the game on a specially equipped steering wheel with pedals and a 49-inch curved monitor screen, just the way I love it, from LG Ultra Gear. On board, I think you can guess, was equipped 5090. Now, if the screen seemed small to you, there was an opportunity to use a larger one. I play Flight Simulator 2024 all in 4K resolution and at 144 Hz refresh rate. They also showed differences between mobile generations, that is 3080, 4090 and 5090. All this was on Razer Blade 17 and Razer Blade 16 laptops. However, there is a very good remark indeed. There were different screen sizes and different processors, therefore the comparison is still not super objective. No, there was also a demonstration of synchronization technologies and reduced image response time plus gaming peripherals. All of this in Reflex 2, supposedly set to debut in Overwatch. Naturally, it first concerns the 50th line, and then it seems like even in the lower models, the Confi UI technology was demonstrated, which allows generating images, and not only that, but also videos, audio, and all this practically in real time. Well, there was also quite an interesting demo stand that used super powerful Nvidia graphics cards. In just a few seconds you could get a poster with the image of any person as the main character of Doom. Do you know how? Just by looking into the webcam. In general, there was a lot of interesting stuff shown regarding video editing and so on, but that's too much information. I've bored you. In general, let's leave it at that. Glad that the Ukrainian vloggers managed to attend this presentation. Very interesting. It's an interesting resource. We watched, listened, and so on. So guys, awesome. I'm glad you made it there, but the point is, the presentation sounds cool, especially if you attend it. But in fact, what we see, this is especially about the guys in their 40s. The 30th lineup is still being used, even the 20th lineup is still being used. I see no point in switching to the 50th series. Seriously, that is unless you're a reviewer, a blogger, or if you have money to burn and so on. It's just plain unprofitable, especially considering the prices and so forth. Moreover, when switching to the new video card of the 50th line, it's very likely that you'll also have to replace other components in your PC, conditionally speaking, the same power supply and so on. Again, considering the prices, I see no reason, so that's that. The presentation itself is interesting. Regarding artificial intelligence, it's also intriguing. Technologies here and there, and again, not only Nvidia, but in general. In short, if you agree, like it. If no, well, give a thumbs down. Write in the comments what you think about all this. Do you like information about artificial intelligence in general? Because there's not a ton of information, but if there is, it's interesting and varied. I like that. That's why I told you. And don't forget to support the project if you have the opportunity and desire. We need to gather 100 paid subscriptions on Patreon or Boosty by the end of the summer. Whatever is convenient for you. There are separate opportunities to support the project financially. Through Monobank, crypto. Whatever is convenient for you, I will be grateful for any help. Thank you for watching until the end, and see you soon. As always, this was Human, and as always, enjoy the game. See you, bye.